Chapter 1. The Foundation. Dennis Roy had always believed in the quiet dignity of building something real. At 34, he ran a small but successful architectural restoration firm in Philadelphia, specializing in historic buildings. His work wasn't glamorous, no glass skyscrapers or modern marvels, but it was honest. Every crumbling facade he restored, every century-old detail he preserved, felt like keeping a promise to the past. His wife, Claire Roy, was a project coordinator at Harrington Development Group, one of the city's most aggressive commercial real estate firms. She'd been there for 3 years, working under Senior VP Patrick Harrington. Dennis had met Patrick exactly once, at the company holiday party 2 years ago. The man had barely acknowledged Claire's introduction, too busy holding court with investors, his laugh too loud, his handshake too firm. Dennis remembered thinking the guy was compensating for something. Claire never complained about work, but Dennis noticed things. How she'd grown quieter over the past 6 months. How she'd started taking calls in the other room. How she'd flinch when her phone buzzed after hours. When he'd ask, she'd smile that smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes, and say it was just a demanding project, just stress, just the usual corporate nonsense. Dennis's younger brother, Damon Bryan, lived 3 hours away in a town most people only pass through on their way somewhere else. They'd grown up in different worlds despite sharing the same parents. Dennis had gone to college, built a legitimate business, married the girl who made him believe in second chances. Damon had gone the other way, not out of malice, but necessity. Their father had been a drinker who believed his fists solved problems. Their mother had died when Dennis was 15 and Damon was 12. Dennis had escaped through grades and scholarships. Damon had escaped through harder lessons, learned in alleys and back rooms, from men who taught survival, had no rulebook. By 18, Damon had become the kind of person you called when problems couldn't be solved by lawyers or police. The kind of person who understood that some debts could only be paid in pain. They didn't talk about Damon's life. Dennis would send money on birthdays and Christmas. Damon would send brief texts, doing fine. Stay out of trouble. It was an unspoken agreement. Dennis kept his distance from Damon's world, and Damon kept his world from touching Dennis. The call that shattered everything came on a Tuesday in November. Dennis was reviewing restoration plans for a Victorian mansion when his phone rang. Philadelphia General Hospital. Emergency room. Is this Dennis Roy? We have your wife, Claire Roy. You're listed as her emergency contact. The drive to the hospital blurred into fragments. Red lights. Horns. His hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. The nurse's carefully neutral expression as she led him through swinging doors. Claire sat on an examination table, her right eye swollen shut, her lips split, finger-shaped bruises darkening on her throat. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table. Jesus Christ. Dennis's voice cracked. Who did this? Claire wouldn't meet his eyes. The attending physician, Dr. Julia Atkins, stepped forward. She has a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and extensive bruising. We've documented everything. I've already contacted the police. No. Claire's voice was sharp, panicked. She grabbed Dennis's arm with surprising strength. No police. Please. Claire, what are you talking about? Someone assaulted you. It was Patrick. The words came out flat, defeated. My boss. He wanted me to alter project reports. Make inflated numbers look legitimate for investors. I told him I couldn't do that. It's fraud. So today, after everyone left, he called me to his office. She started shaking. Dennis pulled her close, feeling her tears soak through his shirt. He said I was making things difficult, that I didn't understand how business worked. Then he grabbed me, started hitting me, told me if I reported it, if I said anything to anyone, he'd kill us both. He said his family owns this city. That cops, judges, lawyers, they're all in his pocket. That we're nothing. Dr. Atkins's jaw tightened. Mrs. Roy, I have a legal obligation. He's right, doctor. Claire pulled away from Dennis. Her one good eye fierce despite the fear. The Harringtons aren't just rich. Patrick's father, Ross Harrington, practically owns the police commissioner. His uncle is a state senator. His cousin is a district attorney. If Dennis tries to protect me, Patrick will destroy us. Or worse. Dennis felt something cold settle in his chest. We'll figure this out. We'll find a way. But as he drove Claire home, she'd refused to stay overnight. Dennis knew the truth. He was an architect. He restored old buildings. He understood permits and historical codes and limestone mortar. He didn't understand how to fight a man who operated above the law. The house felt different when they returned. Violated somehow, even though nothing had been touched. Dennis helped Claire to bed, brought her water and painkillers, sat beside her until she finally slept. In the kitchen, he found the bottle of bourbon he saved for celebrations and poured 3 fingers. His phone sat on the counter like an accusation. He knew what Claire would say if she knew what he was thinking. She'd beg him not to. She'd say they'd survive this, that they'd find another way. But Dennis had seen something in her eyes at the hospital. Something broken that hadn't been broken before. Patrick Harrington hadn't just hurt her body. He'd stolen something more fundamental. Her belief that the world had rules, that justice meant something, that good people could trust the system to protect them. The bourbon burned going down. Dennis thought about his brother. About the last time they'd talked, 3 years ago, when Damon had driven up for their mother's memorial service. They'd sat in Dennis's backyard, drinking beer as the sun set. "You built a good life," Damon had said. "Better than I could have." "You could have had this too," Dennis replied. Damon had smiled, sad, knowing. "No, I couldn't. But I'm glad you did. And if anyone ever threatens that." He'd looked at Dennis with sudden intensity. "You call me. You understand? Doesn't matter what it is. You call." Dennis picked up his phone. Chapter 2, The Escalation. The flowers arrived the next morning. Dennis heard the doorbell while making coffee. Claire was still asleep upstairs, finally resting after a night of fitful half-consciousness and stifled crying. He opened the door to find a delivery man holding an enormous arrangement. Lilies, roses, something expensive and cloying. Delivery for Claire Roy. Dennis took the arrangement, already knowing. The card was tucked between white lilies. Accidents happen. These things get forgotten. Hope you feel better. P. He was still staring at the card when Claire appeared at the top of the stairs, moving slowly, one hand pressed to her ribs. She saw the flowers and went pale. "He sent those?" Her voice was small. "Yeah." Dennis set the arrangement on the hall table. "He's making sure you know he can reach you here." Claire descended the stairs carefully. In the morning light, the damage was worse. Her face was a canvas of purple and yellow bruises, her swollen eye barely open. She picked up the card, read it, and something changed in her expression, resignation settling over fear. "He wins," she said quietly. "We forget this happened. I quit the job, we move on." "Claire, what else can we do, Dennis?" She looked at him, and he saw she'd already surrendered. He's right. His family owns this city. His father Ross has connections everywhere. You think we can fight that? We're normal people. We pay our taxes, follow the rules, and people like Patrick Harrington make the rules. Dennis took the card from her hands. "Let me make some calls. Maybe a lawyer who specializes in what? Assault by the rich and untouchable? Dennis, I looked into this last night when I couldn't sleep. Patrick's cousin, Trevor Harrington, is the district attorney. His uncle, Nathaniel Harrington, is a state senator. His father's company donates millions to political campaigns. They have judges, cops, city officials, everyone who matters, in their pocket." She sank onto the couch, wincing. "I talked to Rosemary from HR yesterday before it happened. She told me Patrick's done this before. 2 other women. Both settled quietly with NDAs and payouts. One tried to fight it. She ended up arrested on trumped-up drug charges. Lost her career, her reputation, everything." Dennis sat beside her. "So we just let him get away with it? We survive it." Claire took his hand. "That's what we do. I'll call today and resign. Say it's for health reasons. We'll be okay. Your business is doing well. We'll be okay." But they wouldn't be okay. Dennis could see it already, the way she'd changed overnight, the way her spark had dimmed. Patrick Harrington hadn't just beaten her. He'd taught her that the world was uglier than she believed, that power trumped justice, that some people could hurt you and face no consequences. Dennis kissed her forehead gently. "Rest. I'll handle the flowers." He took the arrangement to the backyard and threw it in the trash can, petals scattering like confetti. Then he stood there, breathing hard, his hands shaking with impotent rage. He was 34 years old, and for the first time in his life, he understood what his brother had always known, that sometimes the rules didn't apply, that sometimes the system failed, that sometimes justice had to be taken, not given. Inside, his phone sat on the kitchen counter. He'd picked it up a dozen times the night before, typed Damon's number, then stopped. Because calling Damon meant crossing a line. It meant admitting that his nice, normal, legitimate life couldn't protect the person he loved most. It meant dragging his brother into darkness Dennis had spent his whole life avoiding. But as he stood in the backyard, staring at the scattered flowers, Dennis realized something. He'd been lying to himself. It wasn't about protecting Damon from his world. It was about protecting Dennis's illusion that he was different, better, separate from the violence that had shaped their childhood. Claire had told him the truth. They were nothing to Patrick Harrington. Just obstacles to be broken and discarded. And the law, the rules, the system Dennis had believed in, would never touch him. He went inside and picked up his phone. Damon answered on the second ring. "Dennis, I need you to come to Philadelphia." A pause. "What happened?" Claire was assaulted, beaten, by her boss. "He's protected, family connections, money, power. He sent flowers this morning with a note basically saying he'll get away with it." Another pause, longer. When Damon spoke again, his voice had changed. Colder, flatter. "Tell me his name." "Patrick Harrington. His family runs Harrington Development Group. Father's Ross Harrington." They're connected, Damon. "Cops, judges, politicians. Claire says if we report it, he'll destroy us." "And what do you want me to do?" The question hung there. Dennis looked at the stairs where Claire had disappeared back to the bedroom. He thought about the fear in her eyes, the defeat in her voice, the way Patrick Harrington had stolen her sense of safety in the world. "I want him to understand," Dennis said slowly, "that he made a mistake, that there are consequences, that some people can't be threatened or bought off." "You know what you're asking?" "Yeah, I do. This crosses lines, Dennis. Lines you don't come back from. He already crossed those lines when he put his hands on my wife." Silence. "Then, I'll be there tomorrow. Don't do anything until I arrive. Don't talk to anyone about this conversation. And Dennis, once we start this, it has to be finished. You understand?" "I understand." "No," Damon said quietly. "You don't. Not yet. But you will." The line went dead. Dennis set the phone down and poured another cup of coffee, watching his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. He felt strangely calm, as if deciding to call Damon had released some pressure valve inside him. He'd spent his whole life being the good brother, the one who made something of himself, who played by the rules and built a respectable life. But those rules had failed Claire. And Dennis had learned something his father had tried to teach him through fists and fury, something Dennis had rejected his whole life, that some problems couldn't be solved with permits and contracts and polite negotiation. Some problems required a different kind of solution. Chapter 3. The Brother. Damon Bryan arrived the next morning in a 10-year-old Ford pickup, dusty and unremarkable. He'd driven through the night. When Dennis opened the door, he was struck by how little his brother had changed. Damon was 31 but looked older, lean and weathered, with the kind of stillness that came from seeing too much, doing too much. They embraced briefly, awkwardly. Different worlds colliding. "She upstairs?" Damon asked. "Yeah, still sleeping mostly. The concussion's pretty bad." Damon set his duffel bag inside the door. "I need you to tell me everything. Every detail. Who he is, where he goes, his routines, his family, his connections. Everything." They sat at the kitchen table. Dennis had compiled notes, everything he'd learned about Patrick Harrington in the past 2 days. Patrick was 39, divorced twice, no kids. Senior VP at Harrington Development Group, which his father Ross had founded 30 years ago. The company had a reputation for aggressive tactics, buying up properties, pushing out tenants, getting variances and permits through connections rather than merit. "Ross Harrington is the real power," Dennis explained. "He's got the police commissioner in his pocket, donates heavily to the mayor's campaigns. Patrick's just the heir, spoiled, entitled, thinks he can do whatever he wants." "He's done this before?" "Yeah." Claire found out there were at least 2 other women. Both settled quietly. One who tried to fight back got destroyed, arrested on fake charges, career ruined. Damon listened without expression, occasionally asking questions. Where did Patrick live? What security did he have? What was his routine? Did he have friends, enemies, weaknesses? Dennis answered what he could, pulling up information on his laptop. Patrick lived in a penthouse downtown, had a driver, frequented the same expensive restaurants and bars. He was arrogant on social media, posting pictures of cars and watches and bottle service tables. "He thinks he's untouchable," Dennis said. "Everyone thinks they're untouchable until they're not." Damon leaned back. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to spend the next few days watching him. learning his patterns. Then we're going to have a conversation with Mr. Harrington about respect and consequences. What kind of conversation? Damon looked at his brother. The kind that ends with him understanding he made a mistake. The kind that makes sure he never touches Claire or anyone else again. Will it be permanent? That depends on him. But Dennis, I need you to understand something. What I do alone. You don't participate, you don't witness, you don't know details. When this is over, you go back to your life. Your business, your wife, your clean hands. That's the deal. That doesn't seem fair. This is It's exactly fair, Damon interrupted. You built something good. You don't get to keep that if you dirty it. So I do the dirty work, and you get to stay clean. That's how this works. Before Dennis could argue, Claire appeared in the doorway. She'd heard voices. When she saw Damon, recognition flickered across her bruised face. Damon, she said quietly. Hey, Claire. He stood, his expression softening slightly. I'm sorry this happened to you. She looked between the brothers, understanding dawning. Dennis, what did you do? What I had to. No. She moved into the room, wincing. No, you can't. Damon, you can't. If something happens to Patrick, they'll know. They'll come for Dennis. For me. For you. They won't know, Damon said calmly. I'm good at this, Claire. It's what I do. What you do is illegal. It's necessary. Dennis stood, taking her hands gently. Claire, he sent flowers. He's mocking us. And you know nothing will happen to him through legal channels. So we handle it another way. By becoming criminals? By getting justice when the system won't. Claire pulled away, tears streaming down her bruised face. This isn't who you are. You're good, Dennis. You're better than this. I'm better than letting the man who hurt you walk around like he owns the world. Dennis's voice was firm. Better than letting him do this to someone else. Better than teaching him that some people are above consequences. Damon watched them both. Claire, I know you're scared. But your husband called me because he understands something you're still hoping isn't true. The world doesn't punish people like Patrick Harrington. His money, his connections, their armor. So someone has to take that armor away. And then what? You kill him. I'm going to have a conversation with him. What happens after depends on how that conversation goes. Claire looked at Dennis, searching his face for the man she'd married. Dennis held her gaze, letting her see his resolve. Finally, she nodded slowly. Okay, she whispered. Okay, but promise me something. Both of you. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me this doesn't destroy everything we've built. I promise, Dennis said. Damon just nodded. Over the next 3 days, Damon became a ghost. He'd leave before dawn, return after dark, saying little. Dennis continued his work, meeting with clients, reviewing plans, maintaining normalcy. Claire stayed home, recovering physically while wrestling with what was coming. On the 4th night, Damon returned earlier than usual. He spread photos and notes across the kitchen table, surveillance of Patrick. His building, his schedule, his habits. He's predictable, Damon said. Every Thursday night, he goes to a bar called Velvet on Market Street. Stays until midnight, usually alone or with one woman. Then his driver takes him home. The driver parks in the building garage and leaves. Patrick takes the private elevator to his penthouse. When? Dennis asked. Tomorrow. Thursday. I'll handle it after he gets home. What do you need from me? Nothing. You stay here with Claire. You have an alibi. You were home all night. Security cameras if anyone checks. I was never here. After tomorrow, I disappear back to my life. We don't talk about this again. Dennis nodded slowly. Will he survive? Probably. But he'll carry the conversation with him for the rest of his life. Damon met his brother's eyes. This is your last chance to back out. I'm not backing out. Then it's done. Damon gathered the photos. Whatever happens tomorrow, you didn't know. You didn't help. You were just a husband who called his brother because he was scared. That's the story. That's the story, Dennis agreed. Neither of them slept much that night. Chapter 4, The Message. Thursday crawled past with agonizing slowness. Dennis tried to work, reviewing plans for a historic courthouse restoration, but the numbers and measurements blurred. Claire moved through the house like a ghost, barely eating, not speaking. The bruises on her face had progressed through ugly stages of purple and green, but the damage in her eyes hadn't healed at all. Damon left at 4 in the afternoon, saying nothing. Dennis watched him drive away in the dusty pickup, carrying a worn duffel bag. By 6, Dennis and Claire were sitting in the living room, the TV on, but neither watching it. At 8, Claire went to bed. Dennis stayed up, drinking coffee he didn't want, watching the clock tick toward midnight. He thought about Patrick Harrington in that bar downtown, laughing too loud, drinking too much, thinking himself invincible. He thought about what Damon was planning. He thought about consequences. At 12:47 a.m., his phone buzzed. A text from Damon. "It's done. Driving home. Burn this." Dennis deleted the message, cleared his texts, felt his heart hammering. It's done. What did that mean? He climbed the stairs, looked in on Claire. She was actually sleeping, her breathing even. He got into bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, waiting for sirens that never came. Morning arrived gray and cold. Dennis forced himself through his routine, shower, coffee, pretending normalcy. The news showed nothing unusual. He checked his phone obsessively. At 9:30 a.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Roy? This is Detective Melvin Payne, Philadelphia PD. I need you to come down to the station to answer some questions." Dennis's blood turned cold. Questions about what? It's regarding an incident involving Patrick Harrington. Your wife works for his company, correct? She did. She resigned yesterday. I see. Well, we'd like to talk to you about that. Would 11 o'clock work? It wasn't really a question. I'll be there. He hung up, hands shaking. Claire emerged from the bedroom. Who was that? Police. They want to talk to me about Patrick. Her eyes widened. Oh God. They know. They know Damon. They don't know anything. Stay calm. I was here all night with you. That's all they need to know. But as he drove to the police station, Dennis felt reality crashing down. Of course the police would investigate. Patrick's family owned them, but procedures still mattered. And Dennis had called his brother, the brother with a record, the brother known to police in 3 counties as someone who solved problems through violence. Detective Payne was a heavy-set man in his 50s, tired eyes in a weathered face. He led Dennis to an interview room, gray walls, fluorescent lights, one-way mirror. Mr. Roy, thank you for coming in. Can you tell me about your wife's employment with Harrington Development? Dennis kept his voice steady. She worked there for 3 years. Resigned 2 days ago. Why did she resign? Personal reasons. Health issues. Payne consulted notes. See, that's interesting. Because the ER at Philadelphia General has a record of your wife being treated Tuesday night for injuries consistent with assault. Concussion, cracked ribs, facial trauma. Dr. Julia Atkins documented everything. My wife had an accident. She fell. Dr. Atkins says your wife stated she was assaulted by Patrick Harrington. My wife was confused from the concussion. She fell at work and... Mr. Roy. Payne leaned forward. I'm going to be straight with you. Patrick Harrington was attacked last night. Someone broke into his penthouse and beat him severely. Fractured jaw, broken ribs, extensive lacerations. He's in the ICU. Dennis felt his stomach drop, but kept his expression neutral. That's terrible. But what does that have to do with me? Your wife accused him of assault. Now he's been assaulted. That's quite a coincidence. I was home with my wife all night. We were both there. You can check our security cameras. Oh, we will. Payne pulled out another file. You have a brother, correct? Damon Bryan. Here it comes. Yes. Mr. Bryan has quite a record. Assault, extortion, suspicion of involvement in several unsolved cases involving violence. He lives 3 hours away, but has no alibi for last night. His truck was spotted on I-95 heading toward Philadelphia yesterday afternoon. My brother visited because my wife was hurt. Family support. He stayed for a couple hours and went home. Did he know about the accusation against Patrick Harrington? My wife never made an accusation. She had an accident. Payne sat back, studying him. Let me tell you how this looks, Mr. Roy. Your wife accuses her boss of assault. Yes, I know she didn't file a formal report, but the ER doctor documented it. Then she suddenly resigns. Then her boss gets brutally attacked. And your brother, a known violent offender, just happens to be in town. It looks like revenge. It looks like Patrick Harrington has enemies. Maybe someone he screwed over in business. Maybe someone whose property he stole. Maybe another woman he hurt. Dennis met the detective's eyes. Or maybe it's just bad luck. Like my wife's accident was bad luck. They stared at each other. Finally, Payne closed his folder. We'll be investigating. Don't leave town. And if I find out you or your brother had anything to do with this, the Harrington family's connections won't be the only thing you need to worry about. I don't like vigilantes, Mr. Roy. Good thing I'm just an architect then. Dennis left the station on shaking legs, drove home, and found Claire waiting with wide, terrified eyes. "They questioned me," he said. "About Patrick, about Damon, about everything. But I stuck to the story. You had an accident. Damon visited briefly. We were home together last night. Is Patrick alive? I see you. Beaten badly." Claire closed her eyes. "What did we do? We got justice when the system wouldn't give it to us." Chapter 5. The Unraveling. The next 72 hours felt like walking on glass. Dennis went to work, met with clients, pretended everything was normal. Claire stayed home, jumping at every sound, certain the police would return with handcuffs. Damon sent a single text, "Lawyer up if needed." I was never there. The news covered Patrick's attack extensively. Prominent businessman brutally assaulted in his own home. Ross Harrington appeared on camera, offering a $50,000 reward for information. No mention of Patrick's history with women. No mention of Claire's ER visit. The narrative was simple: a good man attacked by criminals. On the fourth day, Detective Payne called again. "Mr. Roy, we need to talk. Your security footage shows your brother arriving at 4:45 p.m. and leaving at 7:30 p.m. the day before the attack. That's longer than a couple hours. We had dinner. Family catching up. We also pulled traffic cameras. Your brother's truck was spotted on the turnpike heading back toward Philadelphia at 10:15 p.m. He returned." Damn. Dennis kept his voice calm. "Then he forgot something. Came back. I was asleep. You'll have to ask him." "Oh, we plan to. Where is he now?" "I don't know. He doesn't report his schedule to me." "How convenient." Payne's voice hardened. "Here's what's going to happen. We're building a case. Your brother had motive. His sister-in-law was hurt. He had opportunity. He was in the city. And we have witnesses placing a man matching his description near Patrick's building around midnight. It's only a matter of time. If you had real evidence, you'd arrest him already. You're fishing." Payne hung up without responding. Dennis called Damon from a burner phone he'd bought that morning. His brother answered warily. "They spotted your truck on cameras. They know you came back." "I know. I've got a lawyer. They don't have enough for an arrest, just suspicion." "But Dennis, this is going to get messy, eh? The Harringtons aren't just letting this go." "What does that mean?" "It means Ross Harrington has resources beyond the police. Private investigators, connections in places I can't reach. He's going to dig into your life, my life, looking for ammunition. You need to be bulletproof, financially, legally, personally. I haven't done anything wrong. Neither had Claire, but that didn't stop Patrick. Rich people play a different game. Remember that." The line went dead. That night, Dennis couldn't sleep. He kept replaying everything. The flowers, the threat, the phone call to Damon. Had he made a mistake? Had he dragged his family into something worse than the original crime? At 2 a.m., his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Hello." "Dennis Roy." A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Who is this?" "My name is Dana Dunn. I was an employee at Harrington Development 3 years ago. I heard what Patrick did to your wife. I heard what happened to him. And I need to tell you something." Dennis sat up. "What?" "I was one of the women Patrick assaulted. He did the same thing to me. Asked me to falsify documents, beat me when I refused, threatened me and my family. His father paid me $200,000 to sign an NDA and disappear. I've been living with that shame ever since." "Why are you calling me?" "Because I think you know who hurt Patrick. And I want you to tell them. Thank you. Tell them they did what the law couldn't. Tell them they gave me a piece of my dignity back." Dennis's throat tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. And there are others. Women Patrick hurt. At least for that I know of. We've stayed silent because his family is untouchable. But maybe we don't have to anymore. Maybe if enough of us speak up, even the Harringtons can't bury it. The police won't listen. They're investigating Patrick as the victim. Then we don't go to the police. We go to the media. I know a reporter, Cassandra Bird, who's been trying to break a story on the Harringtons for years. If we give her testimony, documentation, medical records, it won't put Patrick in jail, but it might destroy his reputation. And sometimes that's enough." Dennis thought about Claire, about how the assault had broken something in her. He thought about Dana Dunn, living with shame for 3 years. He thought about the other women Patrick had hurt, still silent, still afraid. "If I could connect you with these women," he said slowly, "would they talk?" "I think so. Especially now. Especially if they know someone finally stood up to him. Give me 24 hours. Dennis spent the next day tracking down Patrick's victims. It wasn't hard. Their names appeared in sealed settlement documents that mysteriously made their way to Dennis through an anonymous email. 4 women total, including Dana. Each had the same story. Patrick had demanded something unethical, assaulted them when they refused. Then his father had paid them to disappear. Dennis contacted each one. Some were afraid. Some were angry. But when he told them others were willing to speak up, they found courage in numbers. Cassandra Bird was an investigative reporter for Philadelphia Weekly, known for stories that made powerful people uncomfortable. Dennis met her in a coffee shop, brought her everything: medical records, settlement agreements, testimonies from 4 women. "This is explosive," she said, flipping through documents. "But the Harringtons will bury me. Their lawyers, their connections." 4 women, Dennis interrupted. 4 separate incidents over 3 years. A pattern of assault and payoffs. Even the Harringtons can't spin that away. They'll try. Let them. The story will be out there. And maybe other women will come forward. Maybe employees who saw things, knew things, stayed silent out of fear. Maybe Patrick finally faces consequences, even if they're not legal ones. Cassandra studied him. "Your wife is one of the victims. This is personal for you." "Yes." "And someone attacked Patrick. The police think it's related." "I wouldn't know about that." She smiled slightly. "Of course not. But between you and me, whoever did it probably saved other women from the same fate. Sometimes the law fails, and people have to take matters into their own hands." That's a dangerous philosophy for a journalist. Maybe. But I've been reporting long enough to know the difference between justice and law. They're not always the same thing. Chapter 6. The Reckoning. Cassandra Bird's story dropped like a bomb on Monday morning. Power, privilege, and predation. The Patrick Harrington story. 4 women, named and photographed, telling their stories in detail. Medical records. Settlement documents. A pattern of violence stretching back years. By noon, it had gone viral. By evening, every news outlet in Philadelphia was covering it. Ross Harrington's lawyers issued denials. Patrick, still recovering in the hospital, released a statement through his attorney calling the women opportunistic liars seeking publicity. But more women came forward. 6 by Tuesday, 8 by Wednesday, each with similar stories of Patrick's abuse, Ross's payoffs, the family's power protecting a predator. The Harrington Development Group's stock plummeted. Investors pulled out. Ross appeared on television looking aged, cornered, insisting his son was innocent even as the evidence mounted. Detective Payne called Dennis again. Interesting timing on this article. Women finding courage isn't timing. It's justice. You orchestrated this. You and those women, trying to create sympathy, make Patrick look like he deserved what happened. Patrick did deserve what happened. Maybe not the beating. Maybe that was just karma. But he deserved exposure. He deserved consequences. We're still investigating the assault. Your brother is still a suspect. Then charge him. But you won't, because you don't have evidence. You have suspicions and theories and a rich family pushing you to find someone to blame. Payne's silence spoke volumes. Finally, the Harringtons won't let this go. Good. Neither will we. That night, Dennis held Claire as she cried, not from pain, but from relief. The story had given her something back, some piece of agency that Patrick had stolen. Other women had spoken up. She wasn't alone anymore. "Did we do the right thing?" she asked. "I don't know if it was right," Dennis said honestly. "But it was necessary. And sometimes that's enough." On Thursday, 1 week after Damon's visit, Ross Harrington called Dennis directly. "You destroyed my son," the old man said without preamble. "Your son destroyed himself. I just helped the truth come out. Those women are liars. Gold diggers. You've ruined a good man's reputation. A good man doesn't beat women. A good man doesn't use power to abuse people. Your son is a predator, Mr. Harrington, and you've been protecting him. I'll bury you. I'll use every connection, every resource I have. You and your wife, your brother, you'll all pay. You're welcome to try, but I think you'll find the world's watching now. You can't make 4 women disappear. You can't silence a dozen victims. Your protection only goes so far." Ross hung up, but Dennis knew the threat was real. The Harringtons had money, power, connections. They could make life difficult in ways Dennis couldn't even imagine. 2 days later, the district attorney, Trevor Harrington, Patrick's cousin, announced his recusal from any cases involving the family. The mayor's office distanced itself from Ross's company. Slowly, the armor of protection began cracking. Patrick was eventually released from the hospital, still facing no assault charges against Claire or the others. But his reputation was destroyed. Harrington Development Group lost major contracts. Ross was forced to step down as CEO. Patrick was quietly removed from the company entirely, disappearing from public life. Damon called one final time. "They're not coming after me. Payne doesn't have enough for an arrest, and the media attention makes it too messy. I'm clear. And Patrick, he'll live, but he'll remember. Every time he looks in the mirror, every time someone recognizes him, he'll remember that actions have consequences." "Thank you," Dennis said quietly. "Don't thank me. I didn't do it for you. I did it because some debts can only be paid one way. Take care of Claire." The line went dead. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. 3 weeks after the story broke, Dennis and Claire tried to rebuild normalcy. The media attention faded. The Harringtons retreated behind closed doors. Detective Payne stopped calling. Life resumed, but with a different weight. The knowledge that they'd crossed lines, broken rules, operated outside the system. Claire returned to therapy, working through trauma. Dennis threw himself into work, winning a contract to restore a historic library. They didn't talk much about what had happened, about Damon's visit or the violence in Patrick's penthouse. Some things were better left in silence. But on a Friday evening in December, their fragile peace shattered. Dennis came home to find Claire in the kitchen, holding a manila envelope, her hands shaking. This was in the mailbox. No postage, no return address. He opened it. Inside were photographs, black and white surveillance photos. Damon entering Patrick's building. Damon leaving 2 hours later. Time-stamped and clear. And a note, printed on expensive stationery. "Justice has been served." But justice works both ways. Your brother committed assault. We have evidence. If you want this to disappear, we need to have a conversation. Call this number. Dennis felt cold wash over him. They've been watching. This whole time, they've been building a case. What do? We called Damon. But when Dennis tried his brother's number, it went straight to voicemail. He tried again. And again. Nothing. He texted, "Emergency. They have photos. Call me." No response. At midnight, a different number called. "Mr. Roy? This is Ernesto Fink. I'm a private investigator working for the Harrington family. I believe you received our package. What do you want?" "A meeting. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Fairmount Park, near the boathouse. Come alone. We have a proposition. And if I don't, then these photos go to Detective Payne, along with testimony from witnesses who can place your brother at the scene. Your brother goes to prison for aggravated assault. Your wife's story becomes about vigilante revenge. Everything you've built crumbles. So I suggest you come." The line clicked dead. Claire grabbed his arm. "Don't go. It's a trap. What choice do I have? They've got Damon. They've got evidence. If I don't at least hear them out, he goes to prison. So we get a lawyer. We fight it. With what? Their photos are real. Damon did assault Patrick. We can't prove Patrick deserved it legally. The best we can do is listen to what they want." The next afternoon, Dennis drove to Fairmount Park, his stomach churning. The boathouse sat beside the Schuylkill River, picturesque and isolated. A black Mercedes waited in the parking lot. Ernesto Fink was a thin man in an expensive suit, cold eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Roy, thank you for coming. What do you want?" "A trade. We have evidence that puts your brother in prison. You have something we want, which is silence. A public statement from your wife recanting her accusations against Patrick. Testimony that she fabricated the assault story because she was being fired for poor performance. The other women will follow suit once they see the primary accuser backing down." Dennis felt rage surge. "You want Claire to lie? To destroy her credibility and let Patrick walk away clean? Patrick's reputation is already destroyed. This is about damage control. Your wife gives us a statement. The other women lose their credibility. The story fades. In exchange, these photos disappear. Your brother stays free. And if I refuse?" Fink smiled thinly. "Damon Bryan goes to prison. We have witnesses, Patrick's security guard, a neighbor who saw the truck, doorman records. It's airtight. Your brother serves 10 to 15 years for aggravated assault. Maybe more if we push attempted murder charges. He was defending my wife. Vigilante justice isn't a legal defense, Mr. Roy. You know that." Dennis stared at the river, mind racing. They had him cornered. Either sacrifice Claire's truth and the other women's courage, or sacrifice Damon's freedom. Either way, The Harringtons won. I need to think about this. You have 48 hours. After that, the photos go to the police. Fink handed him a business card. Call when you've decided. Dennis drove home in a daze. How had it come to this? They'd gotten justice. Patrick exposed, his reputation ruined. But the Harringtons weren't done. They wanted total victory, complete vindication. Claire listened to his explanation, her face going pale. I can't do it. I can't lie and say I made it up. It would destroy everything we fought for. I know. But if we don't, Damon goes to prison. Then we fight it. Get a lawyer. Argue self-defense on Damon's behalf. Something. They have photos. Witnesses. It's not self-defense when you break into someone's home. They sat in silence. The weight of impossible choices pressed down. Finally, Dennis's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Dennis, it's Dana Dunn. I heard the Harringtons are pressuring you. I know what they want. How do you? Because they came after me too. Threatened to expose private details of my life unless I recant my testimony. They're doing this to all of us, trying to break the coalition before we can do more damage. What did you tell them? I told them to go to hell. And I'm calling the other women. We're having a press conference on Monday. All of us, together, reaffirming our stories. If they want to destroy us, they'll have to destroy all of us. But I'm guessing that kind of public battle isn't what the Harringtons want right now. Dennis felt something shift. You're going to stand together? We already did once. We can do it again. Tell Claire she's not alone. Tell her we've got her back. After she hung up, Dennis looked at his wife. The other women are fighting back. They're not folding. Claire's eyes filled with tears. But what about Damon? Damon made his choice when he came here. He knew the risks. But I think there's another way to play this. Chapter 8, The Gambit. Dennis spent Saturday formulating a plan. If the Harringtons wanted to use evidence against Damon, he'd use evidence right back. He called Cassandra Bird, the reporter who'd broken the original story. I need your help. The Harringtons are trying to force the women to recant by threatening my brother. But I think there's more to their story than assault payoffs. I think Patrick's violence was part of a bigger pattern at that company. What are you thinking? I'm thinking 4 women getting assaulted and paid off means HR knew. Senior management knew. Ross Harrington knew. And if they knew and did nothing, that's criminal negligence. Maybe worse. Can you dig into their corporate records? That's a tall order. But I know some people. Give me 24 hours. Dennis then called Ernesto Fink. I need more time. This isn't a decision I can make in 48 hours. You have until Monday at noon. Not a minute more. Then I guess you'll have your answer Monday. Sunday evening, Cassandra called back. I found something. Harrington Development's HR records show 7 complaints against Patrick over 4 years. 7 women reporting assault, harassment, coercion. All 7 were quietly paid off and forced to sign NDAs. HR Director Robbie Tyler documented everything, then buried it on orders from Ross Harrington. That's a pattern of enabling, of covering up criminal behavior. More than that, 2 of those women were underage interns. 17 years old. Ross paid them off too. If that gets out, it's not just reputation damage. It's potential criminal charges for facilitating abuse of minors. Dennis felt his pulse quicken. Can you prove it? I have copies of the HR reports. Tyler kept everything as insurance, apparently. A source leaked them to me. This is bigger than Patrick. This implicates Ross, the entire company. If this breaks, it destroys them. Completely. Monday morning, Dennis called Ernesto Fink. I've made my decision. Let's meet. Same place, noon. But Dennis didn't go alone. He brought Cassandra Bird and her documentation. They met Fink at the boathouse, the investigator's expression souring when he saw the reporter. This was supposed to be private, Fink said. Plans change. Dennis laid out folders on the picnic table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take these photos of my brother and burn them. You're going to tell Ross Harrington the deal's off. Or what? Or Ms. Bird publishes her next story. The Harrington cover-up. How Ross Harrington enabled his son's abuse of women, including minors. Complete with HR documents showing 7 assaults, 7 payoffs, 2 involving underage girls. We're talking criminal charges, Mr. Fink. Not bad press. Actual prison time for Ross. Fink's face went white. He opened one of the folders, scanned the contents, and closed it quickly. Where did you get these? Doesn't matter. What matters is I have them. And if you don't back off, they go public. So here's my deal. You destroy the evidence against my brother. The Harringtons leave me, my wife, and the other women alone. In exchange, these documents stay private. You're blackmailing us. I'm offering a trade. Same as you offered me. The difference is, my ammunition is bigger. Ross goes to prison if this gets out. Patrick's already destroyed. But Ross still has a chance at salvaging something. Tell him to take the deal. Fink stared at him, calculations running behind those cold eyes. Finally, I'll have to talk to Mr. Harrington. You have until end of business today. After that, the story runs tomorrow morning. Fink left with the folders, the Mercedes peeling out of the parking lot. Dennis and Cassandra waited, tension thick. Think he'll take it? She asked. He doesn't have a choice. Ross won't risk prison to get revenge. At 4:30 p.m., Fink called. Mr. Harrington agrees to your terms. The photos will be destroyed. You and your family will be left alone. But if those documents ever surface, they won't. As long as you keep your end. Fine. It's done. Dennis hung up, exhaled slowly. It was over. Actually over. The Harringtons had been cornered by their own actions, their own cover-ups. Justice hadn't come from the law. It had come from people refusing to stay silent, from evidence gathered in shadows, from playing the game by the same rules the powerful used. That night, Dennis called Damon. His brother answered on the second ring. It's handled, Dennis said. You're clear. How? Let's just say the Harringtons had more to hide than they realized. And I found it. A pause. You played them. I learned from the best. Dennis smiled slightly. You taught me that some problems required different solutions. I just found a solution that didn't require anyone to bleed. I'm proud of you, brother. You've got more of me in you than you thought. Maybe, but I'm still going to try to be the good one. Damon laughed. Good luck with that. Chapter 9. The debt paid. 3 months later, life had settled into something resembling normal. Claire returned to work at a different firm, one with better HR policies and no predators in corner offices. Dennis's business thrived, word spreading about his integrity and skill. The Harringtons faded from the news, Ross quietly retiring, Patrick disappearing to some private facility. The women Patrick had hurt formed a support network, helping each other heal. Dana Dunn started a nonprofit advocating for corporate accountability. Cassandra Bird won a journalism award for her reporting. Detective Payne closed his investigation, no charges filed, the case going cold. Damon visited one Sunday in March. They sat in Dennis's backyard, drinking beer as spring arrived. You ever regret calling me? Damon asked. Dennis thought about it honestly. Sometimes. It changed things. Crossed lines I can't uncross. But when I see Claire smile again, when I think about those other women finding their voice, no, I don't regret it. Justice doesn't always come clean. No, but it still counts. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Damon asked, if it happened again, if someone hurt Claire, threatened you, would you call me? Dennis met his brother's eyes. In a heartbeat. Damon smiled. Good. Because family protects family. That's the debt we owe each other. The one that never gets paid off. Some debts are worth keeping, Dennis agreed. They raised their beers, brothers who'd walked different paths but understood the same truth, that the world didn't always punish the guilty or protect the innocent. That sometimes you had to step outside the lines, get your hands dirty, become what you needed to be. Not because it was right, but because it was necessary. Patrick Harrington had learned that lesson in blood and pain. Ross Harrington learned it through exposure and shame. The system that had protected them had failed, and people had taken justice into their own hands. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but effectively. Claire joined them in the yard, bringing fresh beers, her bruises long healed. She kissed Dennis's cheek, nodded at Damon. Thank you, she said simply. Both of you. Damon shrugged. Just paying a debt. No, she said. You gave us our lives back. That's not a debt. That's a gift. Later, after Damon had driven away, Dennis and Claire stood on their porch watching the sun set. The street was quiet, safe, ordinary. But they both knew the truth now, that safety was sometimes an illusion, that the rules didn't always apply, that some battles required warriors, not lawyers. Dennis had spent his life believing he was different from his brother, better than the violence that had shaped their childhood. But when it mattered, when the woman he loved needed protection the law wouldn't provide, he'd made the call. He'd brought his brother's darkness into his world of light. And he'd do it again without hesitation. Because some debts demanded payment in full, in whatever currency was required. Patrick Harrington had thought himself untouchable, protected by money and power and connections. He learned that some people couldn't be bought or threatened. Some people had brothers who answered calls in the middle of the night. Some people understood that justice and law weren't always synonyms. The debt was paid. The scales were balanced. And in the quiet Pennsylvania evening, Dennis Roy understood something profound. That being good didn't mean being weak. That protecting what you loved sometimes required becoming what you feared. And that family, real family, meant standing together against the darkness, no matter the cost. Patrick Harrington had started something when he put his hands on Claire. He'd assumed there would be no consequences, no price to pay. He'd been wrong. Some debts come due. And when they do, you better hope you can afford the interest. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.